Hello and welcome to Starcast from Planet Waves. I'm Eric Francis Coppolino, your friendly neighborhood astrologer, here with the edition accompanying the weekly horoscope for May 1st, 2025. In this edition, I am planning to work with the chart for Beltane, the mid-spring holiday, the cross-quarter between the equinox and the solstice, depending on where you are. Up here in the northern hemisphere, it's between the vernal equinox and the summer solstice, where the sun has traveled 45 degrees, or approximately 6 weeks from the beginning of spring, so we're halfway through the spring. First couple of house announcements. One of them is that I have a spring reading called Reckoning for the Faithful, which gives a detailed look at your astrology that is based upon all the things I'm going to be talking about for the next half hour or so. These are rather brilliantly personal readings, given that I'm not working with personal data. I would seem to be the last person on the planet with this gift. There have been a few of us before me, not terribly many, and I will put a link, I'll put a link to the Reckoning for the Faithful readings. You've seen them. They're the sunset photo with the Milo field in front of them, taken in Kansas in the 20th century using slides. And also, I have just finished the Taurus birthday reading, also called Astrology Studio for Taurus, about Uranus leaving your sign. This too is a rather impeccable 75-minute reading. It's the kind of thing you can basically leave on repeat in the car, or fall asleep to, or sit up at your desk straight and tall and take notes. And my work is made for 2025, for the stressful, confusing, disoriented, kind of weird times we are living through. I was born for this moment, born to serve in this moment, and I promise you that if you listen to my readings, you will feel better. You will gain some focus and some authentic, true clarity, and be able to ask yourself some questions that will get real answers. I don't know how this lands with people when I say that astrology is better for asking questions than it is for getting answers, and that the thing we want are good questions, because good questions produce a lot of results, whereas answers tend to foreclose those results, that whole process. You come up with an answer, oh, that's it, done, that's an answer. Come up with a question, that puts it back to you, and I am very good at focusing questions. So that's a skill both trained in therapy and in journalism. Okay, so here we are on the 1st of May. The May has arrived. And again, I'm looking at the chart for May 5th. That is for Beltane. Beltane is one of the cross quarters. So the quarter days are the spring equinox, the autumn equinox, the summer solstice, and the winter solstice. The quarter days, they have names from various different languages, Gaelic or whatever. And then at the midpoints of those, there are the cross quarter days. And we are now approaching the cross quarter. You'll notice that holidays tend to concentrate around the solstices and the equinoxes. So, for example, right around now, we've got Memorial Day in the United States. We've got May Day in the rest of the world. We've got International Workers' Day. That's part of May Day. Various different Spring Fest celebrations, Maypole-type celebrations, as well as Mother's Day. And what else have we got around this time of year? Well, that's a good start. So this is the way the both civic and religious holidays tend to coalesce. We just had Easter. That's kind of a mid-spring event. Passover, that's a mid-spring event. Those holidays slide around based on the pattern with the sun and the moon. But Beltane comes with a lot of different holidays. But really, deep down, it is Beltane. It is the cross-quarter day, and here we are. And so these cross-quarter days are tipping points of the season, and they're also very strong energy, let's say energy accumulation points, good times to make decisions and good times to read divination. This is one of these classically honored things that you cast your augury at the time of the quarters and the cross quarters. So in a sense, here we are doing exactly that. And I'm looking straight at the chart that you've got on your screen, unless of course you're listening on YouTube, in which case you have to click through and see this thing because we can't put the chart on the audio version on YouTube. So indeed, click through, or yeah, that's how we're going to do it. Is come right back to Substack. These are the Planet Waves Astrology Substack, and the chart will be above the paywall. Horoscope below the paywall. By the way, today, May 1st, is the 30th anniversary of the publishing of my first horoscope. I wrote the first horoscope on April 13th, and just a short 2 weeks and a day later, it was published on May 1st. It was the horoscope for May 1st through 15th in Free Time magazine, May 1, 1995. Very happy to still be here doing astrology for you. So we see all kinds of things in this chart. I've highlighted some of them. The colored lines are aspects. They are relationships between the planets. And so in the syntax of astrology, the aspects between the planets are like the verb. That thing does that, verb, that's the aspect, to that. So that's where you get your kind of friction. You get your movement in the chart through the aspects. The placements are also very important. So let's go through some of the placements in this chart. And I'm speaking in general terms, not specific terms. The horoscope column below the paywall, 200 words approximately per sign. That's a short essay for just this week. That's where I bring it down to your rising sign and your sign. And this works pretty good. It works better than it should, given all the fuss that astrology makes about having the exact time. And trust me, I will take years to find the exact time of something, but this is a different kind of astrology. Working this way. So again, personalized for your sign and your rising sign below paywall. Now, there's a reason why my horoscope has lasted continuously for 30 years. Not a lot of things keep coming out every week or every month and also seasonally and annually for 30 years. There's a reason for this. All right, let's look at these planets. Now, Let's start with placements and forthcoming events. I've drawn a little orange line. It's kind of pinkish orange, and that's on the lower left part of the wheel. You can see the yellow glyph for Saturn, the blue Neptune glyph looks like a trident, the blue Venus looks like the thing on the ladies' room door. All these things are in a conjunction, and that conjunction is in the first degree of Aries. The first degree of Aries is the position of this. That's where the sun is on the first day of spring. So that's the Aries point or the vernal point. And you can see that the sun, a little bit to the right of that, follow the orange lines, is at 15 degrees. So that's a semi-square aspect. There's stuff right on the equinox point and also at the cross quarter. This does a few things. First, it amplifies the chart. When you put anything in the middle fixed signs, that is to say the middle of Taurus or the middle of Leo or whatever, that's going to amplify things, and especially things on the Aries point, the first degree of Aries, are going to amplify things. The Aries point is this odd intersection between individual and collective. The problem with seeing Aries point effects in the times that we're living in now is that it seems like everything is an intersection between the individual and the collective. Anybody can send anybody a text message, and then suddenly that text message gets published, and it is, the talk of the town on Twitter or whatever, Liberty or Instagram or whatever the case may be. Say something off color, you say something that might be a little bit politically incorrect or whatever, or maybe you're somebody mildly famous, and then suddenly your personal SMS messages are all over the internet. Let's get back in time, maybe 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Some of us remember 40 years ago, I was 21 years old. I was a university student. Oh boy, that was a long time ago. You write a postcard to somebody, that postcard ain't going to go anywhere except where they see it. Maybe someday it'll end up at a yard sale if you're lucky, if it's a cool postcard. But other than that, private communications between people remained private. Nobody fucking cared, and we shouldn't care. But now we live in a time where any private communication can, and often does, become some form of public controversy. And privacy is not merely violated. The problem with privacy right now is that it doesn't exist in reality in the world around us, and that all of the places within ourselves that we were able to have some sense of inner sanctity, some sense of like, okay, this is me, inside of me, and that's you, you're outside of me, I'm inside of me, are gone. We are being vacuumed out of ourselves on a regular basis. And so it is not only that privacy as a thing in the world is gone, but it's that our notion of privacy, our expectation of, our respect for the sanctity of what someone might say to you. And so now we basically live in a world of all gossip all the time. And so it is very difficult for us to have any sense of when there is any unusual intersection between the individual and the collective. But we are in a very significant Aries point moment. So take a look down at that. You can see that the yellow thing that looks like kind of a curvy number 4 sort of, it's like an H actually. The 4 is Jupiter. So it's an H. You don't think of them like that after a while. But it's kind of mustard yellow. It's got the number 28 next to it. It's on the lower left side of the chart. That is the almighty Saturn. That is about to go into Aries for the first time since the mid-1990s. Before that, it was 1966, 67 or so. So Saturn goes around about every 29 years, so it's a big deal when Saturn reaches the beginning of the zodiac, which is what it is doing. The zodiac begins in the first degree of Aries. And so Saturn right now is lingering around in the very last degrees of Pisces, but on May 24th, Saturn enters Aries, and it enters, that is to say, it lands on the Aries point. And when it gets to the Aries point, Neptune is already right there. And so there is a lot of amplification of the individual and the collective in a time when it verges on impossible to even manage these concepts. What's individual? What's collective? How does this have any meaning when you can send someone and it happens all the time. Look in the tabloids. Look in TMZ. Look at the whole scandal going on with the State Department using unsecured cell phones and the Signal app to plan a war, and then they copy in the editor of the Atlantic or something, and it's and the boundary between public and private has grown so thin that matters of actual national security, the discussion of war plans, strategic attack plans against another country are basically being conducted in this kind of crackable, hackable, semi-public environment. So even the people at the very top of the tree have no concept that there is such a thing as private or secure. And this is what we spend billions and billions of dollars on as a country, much more as a world, to be able to secure these things for at least long enough to be able to do the thing in question. And given that it was, attack plans for to like kill people, I really hope that it coming out in public did not make it any easier, maybe even prevented the whole thing from happening. You don't know. I have not heard of the follow-up on that. But just as an example, it's not just your private text messages or email that can suddenly quote-unquote go viral. It is that people who are supposed to be the best trained, the most observant, the most cautious are completely forgetting these protocols, and that's because the concept of security, secrecy, privacy no longer exists in their mind. So we are in this kind of age of the Aries point where there is a total breakdown between public and private. Now, it was Adrienne Rich, the feminist and poet, who said there is no private life that is not determined by some wider public life. Oh, that's interesting. So it is worth deconstructing that concept, and then it was the feminist and founder of the Red Stocking Women's Collective, Carol Hanisch, who said the personal is political. In that order, the personal is political. So she was pressing it here. She was the one saying, watch out, guys, your private email messages could suddenly become the talk of the town. You might say something that we, whoever's in my little tribe, think is off color, and you're going to get it. You're going to get it. Now, I questioned Carol Hanisch, by the way. I got to her. She doesn't live far from me. She's probably quite an old lady now. This goes back about 10 or 15 years. May is Masturbation Month. I'm going to have an interview with Carol Queen on the video channels. That'll be up by the time this comes out. But I said to Carol Hanisch, this is me being me. I said, "So, Carol, hi, how you doing? I read your stuff, Red Stockings, and took 20th century women poets in grad school, blah, blah, blah. So tell me, the personal is political. Tell me, does that mean that masturbation is political? Because it's the most personal sex, the sex you have with yourself, the things you think of in your mind privately." And she said, no. That's it. No explanation. Well, but you said, Carol, the big famous heavyweight feminist, the personal is political. Why isn't you would think this would be nope. So I attempted to forward this email correspondence chain to my old friend Betty Dodson, the late great Betty Dodson, and I said, she doesn't even understand her own theory. And I copied in Carol Hanisch. Oh, that was so much fun. So here's the thing. We have landed in a time when they're going to, they're recording the things that are in your mind. AI. So let's talk about AI for a second. So when we start lining up planets on the Aries point, we get this, we're about to have the first conjunction in the first degree of Aries of Saturn and Neptune since 4600 BC. Okay? Way older than the pyramids. This is from the Leo King astrologer. Somebody showed me the chart that he sent her. He's been talking about this. I haven't gotten to him yet, but I trust this work. I was at a conference. A woman recognized me. She said, "Hey, you've been talking about this. You said you went back to 1 BC. Well, the Leo King went back to 4600 BC. He beat me by 4,600 years. Good for him." And he said, well, actually, that's when we have the last conjunction of Saturn and Neptune in the first degree of Aries, in precisely exactly the first degree of Aries. This doesn't happen very often. It's evidently only happened once. 4,600 years ago is before the founding of astrology. Astrology, as we know it, is not founded till around 400 BC in Greece. And so this is 4,000 years, 4,200 years before that. And P.S. Neptune wasn't discovered, but now with computers we can figure out where these things were going back historically. Well, what's up? If the Aries point is the point of magnification between the personal and the collective, if it merges the two, if we are in the age of the Aries point, P.S., and we can't really see these things because everything is so bollocksed up, because the concepts of public and private are completely useless now. They are absolutely meaningless now. Well, what is going on? Well, something is going on that most people cannot discern. It is A, much, much bigger than any of us, and B, it is invisible because it is so stitched in with the environment. Now, when I say the environment, what I mean is, I wish I was talking about plastics in the oceans. It's a much simpler issue, even though it's horrifying and disgusting. And the plastics are ending up in our brains and our gonads and our blood and in all of our various different bodily tissues. All these microplastics. We're kind of on the same thing with digital. And the digital environment now, we have been basically subjected to the digital environment since slightly before the day that I published my first horoscope 30 years ago. The first email address I ever made up was I was doing an op-ed page ad for a client in the New York Times in the autumn of 1994. The email address was probono@delphi.com, and the client was Doris Sassower, and my job was to write and design and get through special editorial board at the New York Times, one of those op-ed page ads. They don't do them anymore, and nobody really buys the newspaper anymore, but it used to be that on the opinion page of the New York Times, you could buy an ad. Way back when, it cost $10,000, and my fee to write the thing was $3,000 way back then. How about that? So I put in an email address. I said, well, we really should put in an email address in this ad. That was the first email address I basically had ever used. probono@delphi.com, Doris's daughter, set up the email and got it. So right before that, like the internet was on the cover of Time magazine. The internet. Oh, what is internet? Oh, internet. And then you'd walk into like a 7-Eleven or Barnes & Noble, and there would be CDs for AOL, and you get your first 1,000 hours for free and all that. I've got a collection of those things somewhere. So over 30 years, the internet environment has become completely ubiquitous. And now after, so many massive databases of passwords and email addresses were hacked, we're now in this world of two-factor authentication, three-factor authentication. Everything is like getting into Fort Knox, and at the same time, nothing is actually private. So my point is that in over 30 years, the internet environment has constantly, ongoing, crept up on us to the point where it is basically completely invisible and nobody really knows what it is or what it's for. It's just everywhere. I send an email, that's on the internet. You go buy pizza, that's on the internet. You get your car fixed, that is on the internet. Everything but the guy across the street busking, playing his acoustic guitar, is on the internet or involves the internet. I've heard recently that basically after 2012, nobody met in person anymore. People stopped meeting in person. Basically every meeting between people, like by which I mean for like dating purposes, was conducted through one of the Match.com group of apps, Tinder, Grindr, Match, the various different ones. Are you in a relationship that began after 2012? ? Did you meet in person or online? Where would you go to meet someone in person? Where would you go? I mean, I found someplace last night that seemed pretty exciting. Finally warm here in New York. It was like snowing last week in various places in New York. I went to the Bearsville Theater Complex in Woodstock, out the far-flung end of Woodstock. People hanging out on the thing, having conversations, and they got their dogs out there in various different restaurants and all of that. Very rare thing. But in terms of your, let's say, romantic liaison, plural or one, how many have been online? How many have been offline? There really is nowhere to actually meet people. Okay, so everything, every date, every lunch date, every person we meet, every movie ticket, everything is on the effing internet, including my voice coming to you right now in high resolution through the miracle of zeros and ones. So what in the name of God is going on if we're going to have the first conjunction of Saturn and Neptune on the Aries point in recorded history? Well, what's going on? 4600 BC, probably cavemen roaming around or whatever. There weren't even guys with togas in ancient Greece. What was going on? What were the Etruscans chowing on, ostrich drumsticks? Well, what's up? And the thing I'm about to tell you, you can guess what I'm going to say because I haven't shut up about it in a long time, and I'm going to keep going, is that we are now entering the world of synthetic thought, phony human consciousness, also called AI. AI. Like, what's this? AI. Well, what is AI? AI is a simulated human personality, simulated human presence, completely fake, zeros and ones. We might grant it some form of consciousness, but honestly, I'm much, much happier granting consciousness to the aloe plant that's probably listening to everything I'm saying quite attentively, because I've lived with this aloe plant, nurtured it, taken care of it, moved with it from place to place for the last 15 years. I have a relationship with my aloe plant. My aloe plant's a living thing. It's different every day. It's alive. It will allow me to cut a little piece off of it if my skin is irritated, and to use that as a healing balm. We are in a symbiotic relationship, me and my aloe plant, who does not have a name. But we are now entering a time when, for example, after all social has been converted to social media and many things, the number of robots on the internet now exceeds the number of people. Well, we're about to enter a time when the number of AI agents on the internet, that is to say the interfaces with these massive large language systems, exceeds the number of anything on the internet, and most people can't tell that they're talking to a computer. The computer voices, which are not really AI, well, they're sort of AI, but they're not like deep language model, large language models. They're just programmed scripts. When you're watching a YouTube ad and the guy sounds like a duck and the intonation of his language is all wrong and he says everything the same way every time he says it, or she, most people can't tell that these are fake voices. And in a similar way, we're approaching the point where most people will not be able to tell that they are chatting with a robot of some kind, and the robots are going to get better and better and better at tricking people into thinking that they are human, and then humans are going to invest their emotional and life force energy and their time into them and not know or be willing to be tricked because so little else is available. The internet always provides some phony solution to the very problems that it created. The alienation created by the internet, the division between men and women facilitated by digital consciousness, finds its answer in OnlyFans and porno and chatterbait.com, where you can pay in tokens or in money, or you have 20 credit cards stacked up in OnlyFans, and you pick the one that it's accepting that day, and yes, you too, for X number of dollars, 10, 20, 50, $500, can have some kind of metered interaction with someone who is more or less a human being. They're not really bots, but the bigger problem is, first of all, most people are not that interested in that, and they can't afford it, and it's stupid. However, the availability is only matched by the alienation created by the environment itself. This is a very dangerous, vicious cycle where the environment creates a dehumanization. The environment creates an impersonal quality, seriously impersonal quality, where people are lonely, they are isolated, and it occurs to me that most people don't realize how isolated they feel because the environment of the internet provides so much seeming interaction, so much busy stuff, that there are many people who are completely distracted all day long, and they don't realize how lonely and isolated they're feeling, and they go to bed, and they're back on the internet, and there's no one to actually connect with and relate to. And into this environment, these synthetic human, made-up, phony, pretend, fraudulent personalities are going to be injected, and they are available everywhere now for commerce purposes. It always starts with business. Every website has an AI agent. Any car rental, Substack, Skype, Bing, all these things have, interact with AI, and everyone's like, what's AI? What's AI? Oh, I'll interact with AI, and that's always the lure. It's always this like, ooh, the new cool thing, Facebook. Who thought that quote unquote social media, really Facebook was the first one to catch on. Who thought that social media was going to ruin social, completely replace social? And if it hasn't completely replaced it, the mentality of Facebook has totally, and Twitter, have infested people's minds and restructured. This is what Saturn, Neptune on the Aries point is screaming about. The problem here is that Neptune makes things invisible. Neptune is the anesthesia. Neptune is the fraud factor. The fraud is a self-concealing crime. This is why the statute of limitations on fraud can be 3 years. It can be 2 years. It's not a 1 year statute of limitations, and it is from the time of discovery. From the time that you have the facts constituting understanding of the fraud, that's when the statute of limitations begins to toll. Your time starts to run out to bring the action, because fraud is a self-concealing crime. And the combination of Neptune on the Aries point is revealing that self-concealing nature, and the synthetic Neptune self of Aries is happening. Now, Saturn enters Aries on the 24th. As Saturn enters Aries on the 24th, on the 20th, and that is some kind of, that begins the process. The two actually don't perfect their conjunction until, I believe, February 2026, but they're both hanging around, looming around the Aries point. Clear through a year from now. And we have a sense now of what this is about. It's about the biggest thing that is happening that very few people are noticing. They're not observing. They're not putting words to it. At the same time this is going on, Chiron and Eris align in their extremely, not as rare as Saturn conjunct Neptune on the Aries point, but very rare conjunction. The last time it happened was 71-72. That also was in Aries. Before that, in Aries, it happened in the 15th century, the dawn of the printing press. This happens on May 27th, so we've got this close series of events. And right at the time of the Gemini new moon, Saturn enters Aries, and then there's the exact alignment number 1 of 3, Chiron conjunct Eris. Pay attention to what is going on within you and around you. And remember, it's not about the gadgets. It's about what the environment is doing to you. This is the most important spiritual question of our time. Indeed, the only spiritual question of our time. We're doing all Eno in this time of Taurus. You're listening to Small Craft on a Milk Sea, and the piece is called Written, Forgotten, composed by Brian Eno, John Hopkins, not Johns Hopkins, John Hopkins, and Leo Abrams. Thanks for listening. You can find me at planetwaves.substack.com, planetwaves.fm. Lots of love, and bye for now.